marginalizing all the viewpoints at one point just to get what we feel is the only acceptable kind on Reddit. So it's catch 22 with that respect.
Well, I definitely, as I think about it, as I describe it with the team, I don't know what word I would use to describe it because if the goal for us is create a space, create a platform where everyone, and I mean almost everyone, but like every reasonable person, feels like they can and will contribute in some way, shape, or form, and let people speak freely enough so that they can be wrong. I mean, no one. I mean, as you stated at the very beginning, no one person has a 100% opinion of what is right.
There is no good
Everything has
fix.
nuance.
Yeah.
Yes, and I want Reddit to always be a place for people to speak freely enough to be wrong.
Yeah.
Like I want it to be a place for someone to say something, even where in your reflection of your own comment, as you were thinking like, how else? Like here, I got some new perspective from the 60-year-old.
Yeah.
Here, somebody's articulating this better than just affirming myself or helping me think of a new perspective. I would love for someone to when Reddit can work, it will allow moments like that to happen, even among people who would who would be in a situation who would utter some comment that is just like more ignorance than outright like hardened bigotry.
Yeah.
Like where it really can be like a teaching opportunity, a teaching moment for them to actually learn and grow.
Yeah.
But we have to do a lot of work to get it to that point because and a lot of it stems from their faults, but like there's still just so much work to do. And I want it. I mean I have a very narrow. I mean I've unsubscribed from the defaults a while ago. I'm really spoiled because I get to see all of these moments on Reddit and learn so many amazing things, and also do it from a perspective of privilege where I can I'll notice some of this stuff, but it's I've never felt unwelcome on Reddit, and it breaks my heart to think that there are people who say that they don't feel welcome on this thing that we've created, who are otherwise good people, right? If a couple of there are plenty of crazies who don't feel welcome, but that's okay.
Yeah, the thing is, you mentioned talking about privilege. Privilege is it's now a charged word, isn't it? Like, someone who hasn't really been exposed to thinking about where they're coming from and people around them, I don't really think the whole concept of you're privileged and disrespect in that respect will fly with them. And I sort of see where they're coming from. When I actually joined Reddit, I would have said, no, I'm not a feminist, I'm an egalitarian, and this like that. That was basically my motto. I'm not feminist, I'm an egalitarian, because I felt, oh, yeah, it sounds better, it rolls off the tongue better, and things like that. But after about, I can say after about 3 years, I wouldn't still say I'm a feminist because I have done fuck all to do, to advance women's rights, but I would say that I'm leaning more towards feminism because I was ignorant about what feminism was coming on Reddit and basic interaction with users in Reddit. So kind of, I read on my own, I was exposed to a wider array of what feminism could possibly be. And when I actually started reading up on, second wave and third wave, because I saw a lot of criticism about what second wave and third wave is, then I said, yeah, I sort of agree with this, and then why is it that the only sort of feminism that I thought there was the bra-burning, man-hating, things like that, and you've got to start asking the question why this is the default perception of what this issue is, what that issue is, what this issue is, especially when you look at things like the Trayvon Martin incident, you look at the Michael Brown incident, you look at this Eddie Gray incident. They all seem to have this pattern of, okay, this ambiguous event happened, and then more often than not, it's always this white police officer did this, and he went home to his family, and the black people in the community came out and were outraged, and then they had to make this whole media circus in whether to charge the police officer or not. You've got to have this conversation of why it's gotten to that point. Has it always been like this, or has it? Is it just something that started up? So I think in that respect, when you're talking about trying to curate Reddit and make it more open to us, those who don't really who don't really fall in line with the whole majority opinions on topics like that, I'd say, why not think of it as a sort of why not make it a sort of a learning tool? So that way you've got the moderators on the subreddits, you've got to, even though you're going to give them free reign on the subreddit they've got, you also have to give them checks and balances. That's one of the major problems that the fonts also have. There's no checks and balances for moderators in order to actually moderate the communities. If we're talking about having a place called our news have a lot of people trying to get that dichotomy of voices, you've got to have the moderators actually moderate the subreddit instead of just sitting down, instead of just squatting there while the subreddit just gets overwhelmed with propaganda from either side of the spectrum. I think that's something you'd look into.
Question: there are a lot of people who would say, "Hey, I'm just making a joke on the internet.
Yeah.
What does it matter? Like it's satire, it's a joke. Get a thicker skin."
Yeah.
What's your response to that?
I think a lot of people, everyone feels better when they're not the butt of the joke. And it's like a couple of you and I can have a drink, and then we can see something that we both think is funny. And then one of us might not think it's so funny, the other of us might actually think it's quite funny, and then just so we don't spoil the mood, we'll just go along with it, and both of us might laugh at what that is. So I think it's, in more respect, it's sort of like a social situation where it's quite easy to say that to join the crowd and laugh with the perceived jokes than to try and go against the grain and say, hey guys, this is going a tad bit too far. But then you've also got to recognize that these jokes they are still in effect in today's society. So even though, like I see it a lot on Reddit, it's just a joke, bro. It's just a joke. But it also reinforces the idea that these jokes come from a place of reality, when most of the times it comes from a place of bigotry.
Yeah, the test that always has been in my head is the doll test, which
Yeah.
they performed in the 40s and the 50s, but they've done it again. I think a documentarian did it again like 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Absolutely fucking heartbreaking. And it is clear the impact that even this sort of casual societal stuff has, whether it's the jokes on the website or so many other decisions that get made, that create this perceived dichotomy. It's real. I'm not pretending like we're going to be able to solve racism. Not the goal of this podcast or even Reddit. But
Okay. In regards to racism and Reddit, I at some point I went through the whole. Okay, so now I see racism everywhere on Reddit, and the only recourse is for me to also become hateful. I actually went through that phrase on Reddit, but it didn't really last, because at the end of the day, I just ended up making myself. You just surround yourself in this pit of despair and hatred. It puts hate in your heart, yes, but at some point you actually have to realize that it's the internet. People are going to be shitheads on the internet. I look at the internet as some sort of public diary, if you will. Everyone's conscious, everyone's innermost thoughts. You don't have to spend the time thinking, oh, maybe there might be consequences about posting this, or oh, maybe someone might take this the wrong way. A lot of people don't do that. It's more like, I think this, eureka moment, and then they post this. So we're talking about racism on Reddit, I just say, you can't really solve it. There's nothing that can actually be done to, solve it because, like I said, it's unequal representation of the population. But it's more visited by a particular subgroup of Westerners than it is any other place on earth. So I don't really expect racism on Reddit to be solved, or I can expect it to be alleviated in a way, but through moderation. But then, yeah, that's the best option that I can give. That's the best option I can give. And you also have to know that when you're talking about our law, that's what basically people see as a calling card of Reddit. When you see things like fat people hate like a touch on hitting the top of our law, people are like, okay, so this is one of the highest voted threads right now on Reddit. Does that mean Reddit implicitly supports this? So you're in this situation where you either have to say, okay, we do not actively support these communities, so we won't give them a platform. We will give them a place to congregate, but not a platform. So like things like, they can't get an hour off, in order to not to recruit people. Or you could say, well, it's freedom. They created their community. So if many people want to join it, fair to them. So I think that's a choice you're going to have to make eventually, because I know right now Reddit is becoming more than just a website. So I think you're going to have to find the right balance in that respect.
Well, this was, when I came back 6 months ago, that was top of mind for me and our interim CEO, Ellen, because we did really miss a chance to be leaders.
Yeah.
And I think what was so heartening was that the response from Reddit when we announced it was extremely positive.
Yeah.
When we finally made the privacy policy update and basically banned revenge porn, the vast majority of users were like, great, like 99%. So it gives me hope that, and like I said, you'll see what we're going to announce today.
Yeah.
I could regret saying this, but it gives me hope that there is this sort of silent majority of reasonable people.
Yeah.
Who really don't want this, or who would certainly not make the case for having it.
Yeah.
And at best, or at worst, maybe they're just indifferent and they're just like, meh, okay, I'm not affected either way.
Yeah.
And then at best, they actually are happy that we're making the change.
Well, yeah, it's a bystander effect, isn't it? It's like no one wants to jump into a bloody fray and to get dog piled on. Everyone hates downvotes. I hate downvotes. I bloody hate downvotes. No matter how much I might say, I don't care about it. It's like, so it's my opinion that's stupid or that wrong. That's it's getting downvotes to the negatives, and nobody likes that because the upvote and downvote system, no matter how much we'd like to say it's more contributing to conversation, it is more like a confirmation of rumors and preconceptions. So if I say 1 + 1 = 2, and I get thousands of upvotes, I feel like, yeah, I was correct. But if I say 1 + 1 = 2, and I get multiple downvotes, and it's on topic, I have to go like, well, what did I say that was wrong? This doesn't make me feel good. Am I that stupid? That's basically what it is. And so I think at this point it's just you have to, once eventually you're gonna find that fine line between, like we were talking about, that fine line of either giving them free rein or reining it in.
One of my biggest takeaways from this conversation is how even in times of intense racial strife and political turmoil, we still see users who share stories that remind everybody that we're not just speaking about abstract ideas or emotions, but lived experiences. One of my favorite Reddit comments from all time had a similar effect on the American debate on immigration 4 years ago. It was created by user R. Honer, famously titled, "Today You, Tomorrow Me." We'll speak to him about that story after a quick word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by MeUndies. As I mentioned earlier, MeUndies makes really comfortable clothing that looks as great as it feels. /ZOHIN, I Zohin. A Redditor named Zohin wrote this in the Bill Burr subreddit. Quote, I ordered a pair last week, got them yesterday, and let me tell you, my nuts feel cradled. There's an actual pouch for your junk that gives you a nice looking bulge. My girlfriend loves the way they look on me. The material is amazing. 10 out of 10, quality product. I'm no scientist, but they feel much better than my Hanes cotton boxer briefs. Unquote. Well, Zohin, you clearly love MeUndies, and rightfully so. They are pretty great. And you don't have to take my word for it, because we have people like Zohin who are providing their own testimonials. So for free shipping and 20% off your first order, go to meundies.com/upvoted. That's meundies.com/UPVOTED. Welcome back to Upvoted by Reddit. I would like to introduce you to the author of Today Me, Tomorrow You, Justin Horner. He's a graphic designer in Portland, Oregon, who goes by the Reddit username of rhoner, or RHONER. A clever anagram of his last name.
I work for a little locally owned retail joint here in Portland. They sell like housewares, kitchenware, cookware, furniture. They've got 4 stores, and I just do their advertising. It's a lot of fun and very keep it back.
Though when Justin wrote Today You, Tomorrow Me, that famous comment on December 14th, 2010, the United States had a rather tenuous political climate.
This kind of happened during that midterm election, 2010-ish time. And immigration reform was huge. A lot of people were talking about it. And I think it was on their minds in a really negative way. I think the people who were bringing it up typically were coming from one angle. They were trying to use this as a wedge issue. They were painting, an entire group of people in a negative light, and this did the opposite. And there was no ulterior motive to saying it, other than, literally just catharsis. So I think it had a little more weight, perhaps. I wasn't trying to argue from a position. I was just trying to let people know, immigrants are great. That's what built this country. They're amazing. They helped me. This is how they helped me.
Basically, Justin was having a year full of car problems, and that led him to have the repeated need to hitchhike. And usually, it was at the benevolence of Latin American immigrants.
The thing that was really odd about it is it didn't really even happen in rural Oregon. Most of these things happened in Portland proper or right outside of town. That was in the breakdown, that was the big reason why I was so frustrated. I was on Highway 217, a mile from an exit on a holiday weekend with tons of traffic. There was plenty of help to be had. It just wasn't coming quickly, if that makes sense. But I had, other than the tire blowout, I had an out of gas situation in a car that was parked on a hill. That one was really weird. I was sort of resigned to my fate. I was parked in a short-term parking spot. The car was on an incline.
Each of these times this shit happened, I was disgusted with how people would not bother to help me. I spent hours on the side of the freeway waiting, watching roadside assistance vehicles blow past me for AAA to show. The 4 gas stations I asked for a gas can at told me they couldn't loan them out for my safety, but I could buy a really shitty 1-gallon cat for $15. It was enough each time to make you say shit like, this country is going to hell in a handbasket. But you know who came to my rescue all 3 times? Immigrants. Mexican immigrants. None of them spoke a lick of the language, but one of those dudes had a profound effect on me. He was the guy that stopped to help me with a blowout with his whole family of 6 in tow. I was on the side of the road for close to 4 hours. Big Jeep, blown rear tire, had a spare but no jack. I had signs in the window of the car that read, need a jack, and offered money. No dice. Rye's about to give up and just hitch out of there. The van pulls over and dude bounds out. He sizes the situation up and calls for his youngest daughter who speaks English. He conveys through her that he has a jack, but it is too small for the Jeep, so he'll need to brace it. He produces a saw from the van and cuts a log out of a downed tree on the side of the road. We rolled it over, put his jack on top, and bam, in business. I start taking the wheel off, and if you can believe it, I broke his tire iron. It was one of those collapsible ones, and I wasn't careful, and I snapped the head. I needed clean off. Fuck. No worries. He runs to the van, gives it to his wife, and she's gone in a flash down the road to buy a tire iron. She's back in 15 minutes. We finished the job with a little sweat and cussing. The stupid log was starting to give, and I'm very, very happy man. We were both filthy and sweaty. His wife produces a large jug of water for us to wash our hands. I tried to put it away. Take it. So instead I gave it to his wife as quietly as I could. I thanked them on one side, I asked the little girl where they lived, thinking maybe I could send them a gift for being so awesome. She says they live in Mexico. They're here so mommy and daddy can pick peaches for the next few weeks. After that, they're going to pick cherries and then go back home. She asks if I have had lunch, and when I told her no, she gave me a tamale from their cooler. The best fucking tamale I've ever had. So to clarify, a family that is undoubtedly poorer than you, me, just about everyone else on that stretch of road, working on a seasonal basis where time is money, took an hour or 2 out of their day to help some strange dude on the side of the road when people in tow trucks were just passing me by. Wow. But we're not done yet. I thank them again and walk back to my car and open foil on the tamale because I'm starving at this point. And what do I find inside? My fucking $20 bill. I whirl around, I run up to the van, and the guy rolls his window down. He sees the 20 in my hand and just shaking his head no, like he won't take it. All I can think to say is, por favor, por favor, por favor, like with my hands out. Dude just smiles, shakes his head with what looked like great concentration, tried his hardest to speak to me. Today you, tomorrow me. Pulled up his window, drove away, his daughter waving to me in the rear. I sat in the car and he as fucking tomorrow all the time. I just cried. It's been a rough year. Nothing has broken my way. This was so out of left field. I just couldn't deal. 5 months since, I have changed a couple of tires, given a few rides to gas stations, and once, 50 miles out of my way to get a girl to an airport. I won't accept money. Every time I tell them the same thing, you're through. Today you, tomorrow me.
Wow. Alright, it's pretty clear why this Reddit comment is legendary, since it shows that people are capable of helping each other just because, not expecting anything in return, and that gives me hope.
I only know the father's first name. I don't even know the daughter's name. I never got the wife's name. I don't know their last name. I know they had a van with California plates, but that was about it. And they even said that it wouldn't be around for more than a couple of weeks. One of my biggest regrets in life is that all of this attention and well-wishing and just everything that has come with this, I don't deserve any of it. I mean, I just happened to be the guy there in the bad spot. The only thing I did was like put it down, tap it into the keyboard. They're the ones who did it. I mean, they inspired everything about this. For me, it was great, wonderful, and I'm glad it happened. And it definitely changed my life. What's so impressive to me was just the number of people affected by it. To this day, I still get messages whenever it's mentioned from people who've pledged they're going to help and be better going forward. I mean, I'm just some guy with a tire blown out. You know, I feel